Hi, my name is Dr. Marc Reynolds. I'm a voice teacher, performance coach, and stage director. Today I'm going to be reacting to Dimash's performance of Late Autumn. The question of the day, how do different vocal colors affect you emotionally? Comment down below. I'd love to hear what you have to say. It's always so interesting to me to hear how different people respond to different things.
秋意浓，离人生像秋意浓，一杯酒，清水泛舟。的季节离别多，握住你的手，放在身头，我要你记得无言的承诺。我把相思过。只把你伤到，愿这样人在风中，聚散都不由我。我把我孤独，只把你失望。无处说离愁，秋意浓，离人身上秋意浓，一杯酒，清水泛舟。的季节离别多，握住你的手，放在身头，我要你记得无言的承诺。我把相思愿人在风中，聚散都不由我。
So I was talking with my wife late last night, and she's asking me about Dimash. And I started getting super excited and telling her all the things that I thought were so amazing about him and his performances. How excited I was about him being able to just blow through every style, every genre, every register, every color with just such grace and ease, such smoothness. Talking to her about how clear he is with his communication, how he uses his eyes, his face in combination with the music, which we'll talk about in another video. So cool. And there's just so much to think about and talk about with Dimash. And she's like, well, why don't you share that with your viewers? And I said, well, I'm trying to, but it's not so easy with a camera staring in your face. I wish I could just do it here at home while I'm eating cereal and relaxed and comfortable late at night, letting steam off. So I hope you get a feeling here at how exciting he is for me to listen to and watch, not just as a voice teacher, but as a stage director, as an opera stage director and performance coach. It is so thrilling to see what he's doing with his entire performance. Really is such a stellar performer, no matter what genre we're talking about. One of the little classical voice devils on my shoulder is whispering my ear saying, well, if you took the mic away from him, you probably wouldn't hear him over an orchestra. He probably wouldn't be able to sing in an opera. My response to that is, well, I don't know. We wouldn't know until we tried it. My gut tells me, though, that especially when we're talking about those higher notes, when he goes up into that countertenor type registration, I would suspect that we'd hear him just fine over an orchestra without the mic. I'm hearing enough of that singer's formant throughout his voice that I think we'd hear it just fine. Hopefully someday we might be able to see that. My guess is there's no reason for him to do that. He's making more money doing what he's doing right now and being wildly successful and pleasing audiences all over the world. So are we ever going to see him sing an opera? Probably not. But it would be really interesting to see what would happen if he did. Frankly, I think he would crush it. I think he would do an awesome job and be so stellar on stage. Back to the teacher version of me rather than the gushing fan version of me. There are 3 things from this video that I think are worth exploring more. First is, how is he managing the different shapes and colors in his voice with such smooth transition? Second, how is he going from super low to super high so smoothly? How does he do that? Third, creation of sound versus shaping of sound. Number 1, smooth transition of colors and shapes. Well, first of all, let's talk about what do we mean by colors and shapes. Colors and shapes, what we mean are colors meaning is it dark or is it bright? Shapes meaning shapes in our mouth and in back here. Meaning, is it taller or is it wider? Are they related? They're similar, just different ways of thinking about it. But to me, I think of them very visually. And so I'm thinking in terms of colors, red, yellow, blue, purple, or I'm thinking in terms of shapes, boxes, ovals. I'm a visual person, so that's how I describe it and think about it. If it works for you, great. If not, then come up with your own way of thinking about it. One way or the other, how are we getting these different sounds that we're hearing and smoothly transitioning between them so it seems seamless? The first thing is you have to know how those different sounds are made so that you can make them. We've talked about some ways to shape those sounds in other videos. We've talked about tallness in back. We've talked about wideness in that back oral space. We've talked about jaw release. We've talked about larynx position. We're talking about vibrato versus no vibrato. We're talking about being aspirate versus glottal. There's all different kinds of ways to shape the sounds. What I'm wanting to talk about more, though, is the change in mindset that it's one sound or another sound. We need to realize that these muscles and tendons and everything controlling these sounds are flexible. If we're keeping our body in balance, and when I mean balance of tensions. Do we ever sing with zero tension? No. There's always tension in our body. If there wasn't, we'd be a puddle on the floor. So what we want are the appropriate tensions, the appropriate balances of tension, the resistances back and forth between proper muscle groups, and finding a balance so it's working at its most effective and we're releasing tensions we don't need. So if we're doing that, and if you're wondering, how do I do that? Again, this is where a trained voice teacher is really, really important, because they can help walk you through that with your voice. If you're just watching a video like this, where I'm talking to you about tools, the real value of a teacher, a live teacher, whether you're doing it over the internet or not, is that they can help you learn how to apply those tools to your own voice. They can tell you exactly what you're doing and help you discover how to fix it. Where if you're trying to do it on your own, it's near impossible for a lot of reasons, and we can talk about that another time. The important point here is that when we sing in a balanced way, when our vocal folds are in the proper balance between force of folds coming together and flow going through, when we don't have any extraneous muscle tension involved in our singing, then those muscles are free. They're free to move and transition smoothly. They aren't bound up by pressure building up below the vocal folds. They're not bound up in strain here that is hard to release and going to lock it into place. These muscles are malleable and can move. So by understanding how to make the shape, and by believing and understanding and relying on the fact that these muscles are flexible, that these different colors are on a continuum that we can slide in between, is what's going to help us transition more smoothly between different colors and shapes. Here are some moments where I think he's transitioning between different colors and shapes in an absolutely stunning, great way. Does he always do it in the middle of a phrase? Definitely not. Usually he's choosing specific musical moments to change. But can he? Yep, he does. Sometimes, and that's what blows me away, is when he's in the middle of a phrase and he gradually shifts it so you don't even realize you're in a new style yet. To me, as a teacher, that's the most stunning. I think that's so hard to do for most people. And he does it, making it look so easy and effortless. Number 2, smooth transitions between registers. What do we mean by this? Well, I hate the word registers. I don't like teaching that way. I taught that way for a really long time until I realized when I kept the balance between vocal folds coming together and that pressure in balance with the airflow coming through and keeping that consistent, registers became a non sequitur. It just didn't really matter anymore. That I could then sing through the bottom to the top and just have it feel like the same voice. I didn't feel any big shifts, any big changes in sound. These muscles and tissue in here were free to shape and make different sounds as they needed to. What happens is when we hear really big vocal ka-chunks, big changes in gear, big vocal shifts, it usually means that we're over-pressurizing or under-pressurizing a certain part of our voice. A certain set of muscles in here controls our vocal folds getting thicker and heavier. It controls the lower notes. It also is often connected to vowels, those taller vowels. And that's what we usually talk about when we're talking about chest voice or these lower registers. When we get to these higher registers, a different set of muscles has to engage that's responsible for making the vocal folds thinner and longer, and consequently lets us get higher notes. So if we think of it as a dyad, as it's either this or that, then we're going to get this big ka-chunk, especially if these vocal folds are pushing together really hard, so it builds up pressure, and then it locks these vocal folds into place, so they're not then free to adjust and change shape as we're changing pitch. We're now changing pitch by bulging these vocal folds and shoving air through it, rather than changing pitch by the shape of our vocal folds. Well, not so much ideal. But when we find that balance, then these muscles, rather than become one or the other, can kind of give and take over the course of the entire range. And it doesn't become an either or. It becomes this fluid continuum of going up and down and back in an easy, balanced way. So, as we're watching Dimash, you'll notice that the keys to this that are making it happen he's keeping his airflow consistent. He's not changing the airflow depending on his pitch. It's staying the same no matter what pitch he's singing. It's moving fast, and it's a little bit of air. So don't get confused with air quantity versus air speed. What we need for these vocal folds to work efficiently is air speed. Yes, we need some quantity of air, but we don't need this huge quantity of air going through. What we need is a little bit of air going through those vocal folds really fast. Again, for more information on that, feel free to watch my video on using the straw, or watch other people talking about how to use a stirrer straw with the voice. It's a great tool to help us find that balance. Third, we want to talk about creation of sound versus shaping of sound. Creation of sound is what is happening between our vocal folds. These vocal folds are coming together, they're slapping together, and consequently making sound. What we want to pay attention to is that we want to keep this balance of force and flow, and how the vocal folds are functioning, working efficiently and healthily. That's what we mean by creation. A lot of times, creation is confused with shaping. So if I put this larynx down and I open this space in the back, then I'm creating sound. No, we're not talking about the creation of the sound. We're talking about the shaping of the sound. This lowered larynx, this open space in the back, is going to create a shape that is more resonant. Imagine the shape of an acoustic guitar. How big it is and its shape affects its sound quality. But really where we're creating the sound is when we're plucking the strings. Then it gets shaped by going into that resonant space, bouncing around, and then coming out that little hole in the front of the guitar. So what I want you to pay attention here with Dimash is, what are the different ways he's shaping the sound? How does he make that happen? What are the different resonant spaces? How is he shaping him? What does it look like? What I'm going to challenge you to do here is to sing along with him, or sing a song that you know. Sing Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, but try to imitate the different mouth shapes he's making. From back here in the release in the jaw to the front to everything that you're singing, try to imitate it and see what happens. Do I want you to imitate him exactly? No, but it's worth imitating different singers just to see what happens. See what that does in our body and if there's anything we can learn from it. Our body and mind work really well by imitating. That's how we learn from the time we're an infant, is by imitating the people around us. So let's use that tool and imitate and see what we learn. If it makes it easier here in our throat, keep it. If it makes it harder or more fatiguing here in our throat, put it aside. It might be usable later, it might not, but it's not good for us right now. Back to our question of the day. How do different vocal colors affect you emotionally? To me, the most dramatic emotional response comes from placement, actually. So the more forward and buzzy the placement, the more we're hitting that singer's formant and hitting that higher buzzy sound. The more excited I get, but it also forces me to engage and watch. Not necessarily always in a comfortable way. It demands my attention. When that placement pulls back, it's easier to listen to it. I feel more comfortable. I get to choose where my attention goes. I can let it wander and I can let it come back. That's why a lot of times we hear lounge singers or jazz singers who are used to singing at events where people are milling around and going, singing with a little further back, softer placement. Not always, but they do in the softer sounds because it allows people to not have to focus solely on what's going on. It allows them to think and feel and process. So, to me, that brighter sound is engaging and exciting. That softer sound, where it's not as buzzy and forward, it's further back, lets me relax and process and be comfortable. I want to hear how you respond to different colors and sounds. A, how you describe them and think about them. B, what it does for you. Let me know what you think and comment down below. I look forward to continuing this conversation in the comment section. If you want a voice lesson, a performance coaching, a consultation, or just to talk through your ideas with me, book a time with me at mrperformingartstudio.com. I look forward to working with you online.